Now, the Democratic Alliance is mulling a court action to ensure that schools are equipped with safe and appropriate sanitation facilities. The party has accused Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga of misleading the country on pit toilets and her unwillingness to take responsibility on the issue. DA Shadow Minister of Basic Education Baxolile Notata has had sharp exchanges with Motshekga recently on the slow eradication of pit latrines. He joins us now for more. He joins us virtually. Thank you very much, Mr. Notata, for your time here on ENCA. Let's talk about the particular school where recently a pupil died, a very young pupil passing away in a pit toilet. And you say that you visited that particular school in the Eastern Cape, and what the minister explained in terms of giving the school or the school receiving adequate sanitation facilities was incorrect?
Good morning, Mr. Gwen. Good morning to your viewers as well. I sadly visited the family of Langalam Viki, who sadly tragically died in a pit toilet, which was Glen Grey in the Eastern Cape. And when you arrived at the school, the minister says that the child went into the wrong toilet. Well, in actual fact, Maseko, there's only one form of toilet there, and it's a VIP toilet, basically a pit latrine that went to private school. And it's meant for adults to use. There are no pit toilets or toilets that are meant for a child as young as Langalam Viki, who was 3 years and 8 months. And it is sad that the minister, gets the wrong information. And that's why it's very important to go see these things for yourself. And there is no way, almost 30 years into our democracy, a child should be dying in the pit toilet. Secondly, the minister says that there's only 3,800 schools that still have pit toilets. But their own system that tracks pit toilets indicates there's almost 5,127 schools that still use pit toilets. And that is why, as the DA, we have decided that we're going to launch a national campaign to do oversights in all provinces that still have pit toilets, in exclusion of Gauteng and the Western Cape, because they don't have pit toilets, to ascertain the exact number so that when we do build the court case against the government to come up with a plan to eradicate these pit toilets so that no other child has to die in a pit toilet, we know the exact figures, not the ones that are being purported in air-conditioned boardrooms.
So you're telling me since the Komape family won its case a few years back in terms of, I think it was last year or late the year before, in terms of the court in the High Court in Limpopo, saying that the department had to give a fresh list of how many schools needed pit toilets to be eradicated. Are you saying that that was not done? Even after the court handed down that judgment?
You see, after that court judgment, Maseko, a plan was put in place to eradicate pit toilets. And we were supposed to eradicate these pit toilets a couple of years ago. The goalposts kept on being shifted to the 2020 March, to 2023 March. And they're continuously being shifted. As you may be aware, the minister is trying to change the regulations for infrastructure as we speak, to shift the goalpost again to eradicate pit toilets completely. The system that they came up with was to track where these pit toilets are. Their own national education infrastructure system, the NEEM system, has checked that there's over 5,100 pit toilets in schools. But when you see the report of the minister, they've only identified 3,800 pit toilets, which is in fact a big discrepancy, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't be talking about pit toilets 30 years into our democracy in the month of human rights where we're supposed to be living a dignified life, where I don't have to worry about my child going to school instead of going to get an education, they end up, going to a graveyard. We should be extremely concerned. This would anger all of us. And more importantly, the department needs just returned 100 million rand now, meant for infrastructure to eradicate this pit toilet. And yet a child a week later dies in a pit toilet, but they haven't used the budget to eradicate that. Mpumalanga has returned 314 million. It is meant to eradicate these pit toilets. But this low engagement of making sure that our children are safe in schools is actually an indictment on the department. It's an indictment on the political world that is there. It's the indictment of the people that have the decision-making power to eradicate these, to ensure that our children are safe. And that is why we're going to court, to ensure that we hold this government to account, but also we protect our children's lives and ensure that no other child has to become Langalam Viki or Michael Komapi for that matter.
So when you take the department to court, Mr. Notata, what are you asking the court to find them guilty of, or to, to do in terms of the education department? Because every time there's a child that dies in a pit latrine, only then does this topic come into light. So what would you want the department to do, or the courts to do, to the department in particular?
So there's three things. The first thing is to compel the department to come up with a plan with a timeline of when to eradicate these pit toilets. After we worked with different stakeholders to identify exactly the number of these pit toilets in our schools. Secondly, for them to ensure that in that particular timeline they don't default, and anybody who becomes responsible, either an education department in each province that may have an incident where a child dies in a pit toilet, they are held accountable for culpable homicide. And thirdly, is to ensure that the money that is meant to be used for pit toilets, it's adequately used, and those people that are failing to do so, like the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga, are then held accountable for that matter. So that's what we're basically asking. We're going to be asking the courts to do, so that we've got a specific timeline. If we say by December 2023 and the court hands down the judgment, there must be no pit toilets left in 2023. But more so than anything, the type of sanitation facilities that are being built must be adequate. They mustn't be dangerous for children.